Beneath quiet hills, sealed caves, and forgotten burial grounds, records and reports describe discoveries that never stayed in the public eye. Oversized skulls, massive rib cages, and bones longer than any modern human frame were once photographed, documented, and quietly removed. In newspapers from the 1800s, witnesses described skeletons measuring far beyond known limits, found in places where no museum displays exist today. Across continents, similar accounts appeared, then vanished. Files disappeared. Specimens were relocated. Excavation sites were closed. What remains are fragments of reports, blurred images, and unanswered questions about what was found, who took it, and why it was never studied in full. What if I told you that beneath the earth, in forgotten burial mounds and hidden caves, lie bones of beings far larger than anything humanity has ever seen? Imagine ancient giants, so colossal that their skulls would dwarf the average human head, their bones so thick and heavy that they could never belong to an ordinary person. These aren't just tall tales passed down through generations. These are the remains of a forgotten race, one whose existence may have once challenged the very fabric of history itself. But what happened to them? Why have these giant skeletons vanished into obscurity, with only whispered rumors and faded reports left to hint at their true nature? As unsettling as it sounds, there may be more to these giants than just myth or legend. Could they have once roamed the earth? And if so, why is their story buried so deep in the annals of suppressed history? The discovery of giant skeletal remains is not something confined to folklore or urban legend. In fact, over the past few centuries, there have been startling accounts of such finds. Massive bones, skulls larger than any known human, and structures seemingly built for beings of impossible size. These discoveries were once hailed as proof of a mysterious race that walked the earth long before our recorded history. But as quickly as these bones were uncovered, they seemed to disappear from public record. Mainstream archaeology and history have done their best to sweep these anomalies under the rug. Yet the question remains, why? Across the world, from the deserts of North America to the frozen lands of the Himalayas, giant bones have been found, sometimes preserved in ancient tombs, other times in the middle of nowhere. Reports of skeletons measuring over 12 feet tall, some even believed to reach 20 feet, surfaced in the early 1800s, most notably in the United States. In 1833, a giant skeleton was supposedly discovered in a burial mound in Ohio. Its skull so large it could fit into a basket, its bones nearly double the size of a normal human. But just as quickly as these discoveries came to light, they were dismissed or suppressed. Why? Could it be that humanity is not alone in its struggle to understand its own origins? Could there be more hidden from the public, locked away in vaults and archives that are closed off to us? Perhaps the answer lies within our history itself, a history that is far more complicated than we are led to believe. The giants, as it turns out, aren't just confined to the bones buried in the earth. They have their place in ancient texts and legends as well. The stories of a Nephilim from the Bible, the enormous beings mentioned in the Hindu Mahabharata, the tales of the gods and titans from Greek mythology, all these speak of beings that defied human comprehension in terms of size, power, and stature. These creatures, these giants, are described not as gods from the heavens, but as beings that once roamed the earth alongside humanity. Were these beings real, or are they simply metaphors for something we can't fully comprehend? Could they have been the same giants whose bones were uncovered in remote burial sites? The fact that ancient cultures across the world share stories of giants speaks volumes. These stories are not isolated. There's a consistent theme of colossal beings existing in our shared history. From the towering giants of Norse mythology to the massive beings of Mesopotamian lore, the giants were not just creatures of fiction. They were real, or at least they were believed to be. The sheer volume of evidence across different civilizations, separated by time and space, cannot be written off as coincidence. These accounts tell of ancient gods who walked among men, ruled kingdoms, and created civilizations that have long since crumbled into dust. But the question remains, Could these giants have once ruled the earth, and if so, what happened to them? As we dig deeper, the question becomes not whether giants existed, but how they fit into the story of human history. If these giant beings were real, where did they come from? And why did they disappear? These bones, these relics of an ancient time, may hold the key to unlocking one of the greatest mysteries of our world. Could there have been a forgotten civilization, a race of beings that predated everything we know about ancient history? Or were the giants simply a different breed of humans, a race that existed side by side with the ancestors we know, but one that was wiped out by cataclysmic events, either natural or man-made? If the bones themselves weren't enough to stir up questions, the mystery only deepens when we consider the strange way in which these discoveries were suppressed. In the 19th century, giant skeletons were reportedly uncovered in dozens of locations across the United States. Many of these discoveries were reported by local newspapers, but they soon faded into obscurity, often after brief mentions in the press. Some reports claimed that the bones were secretly removed or even destroyed, with no records of their existence ever surviving. What could be the reason for such secrecy? Why would something so incredible, so earth-shattering, be buried away from the public eye? Was there a greater force at work, one determined to keep this part of history from coming to light? The fact that these discoveries were so systematically ignored or erased points to something deeper, something that many researchers believe may involve a deliberate attempt to hide the true history of human civilization. What if these giants were part of a larger narrative that doesn't fit within the traditional framework of human history? What if their existence contradicts everything we think we know about the past, especially when it comes to the rise of ancient civilizations and the origins of human society? While mainstream science continues to dismiss the idea of giants, a small but growing community of alternative historians and archaeologists are beginning to piece together the puzzle. They point to the overwhelming evidence of giant remains found not only in the Americas, but also in parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. In fact, some researchers believe that ancient civilizations may have been built by these giant beings, who may have had knowledge and technology far beyond what we can comprehend. Could the lost civilizations of Atlantis or Lemuria, as some believe, have been populated by these giant beings? And if so, what happened to them? Did they die off naturally, or was their destruction a result of a cataclysmic event that wiped out their entire race? The mystery surrounding the giants raises as many questions as it answers. Were they the remnants of an ancient race that lived alongside humans, or were they a separate species altogether? Did they possess powers or abilities that are beyond our understanding? Abilities that could explain the advanced technology and seemingly impossible structures left behind in their wake? Could they have been the gods or demigods of ancient mythology, worshipped by early civilizations as supernatural beings? Or were they simply a race of humans who were far larger and more powerful than we are, only to be wiped out by forces beyond their control? Whatever the truth may be, the discovery of these giant skeletons challenges everything we know about human history and civilization. It forces us to reconsider the idea of human origins and to question the validity of the history we've been taught. Could the giants have been part of a greater, more complex narrative, one that has been deliberately concealed from the public? Perhaps it's time we begin to reassess the evidence and open our minds to the possibility that our understanding of the past may be far more complicated and far more extraordinary than we've ever imagined. The idea of giants is not something that belongs solely to the realm of myth and legend. Across the world, various ancient cultures share remarkably similar stories of beings who towered above ordinary humans, creatures of immense size and strength who walked the earth long before recorded history. These giants were often depicted as gods or titans, powerful beings who shaped the world and interacted with humanity in ways we can only begin to understand. From the Bible's Nephilim to the towering figures in Norse mythology, the stories of giants have been woven into the very fabric of human culture for millennia. Yet, what if these stories were not merely symbolic or allegorical, but instead based on actual beings who once walked the earth. What if the giants in these ancient tales were not just gods or myths, but a race of beings whose remains were hidden, suppressed, or erased from history? The stories of giants are found across every corner of the globe, from the cold fjords of Scandinavia to the deserts of the Middle East, from the sacred texts of the ancient Hebrews to the epic tales of the Greeks. In the Bible, the Nephilim are described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. These beings were said to be giants, mighty and powerful, and their existence was enough to spark fear and awe in the hearts of early humans. The Nephilim were not merely creatures of legend. They were real, and their presence on earth was documented in ancient texts. But the Bible is not the only source to mention giants. In Greek mythology, the Titans were a race of powerful beings who predated the Olympian gods. The Titans were said to be giants, ruling over the earth before being overthrown by the gods. In Norse mythology, we have the Jotnar, the giants of the frost and fire, who were believed to be the enemies of the gods, and who shaped the world in their own image long before the rise of human civilization. Even in indigenous cultures across the world, there are accounts of giant beings who played pivotal roles in shaping the land and its people. In Native American traditions, the stories of giant, powerful beings are common, with many tribes speaking of races of giants who once roamed the land, leaving behind massive footprints and structures too large for any normal human to have constructed. The Maori people of New Zealand have similar stories of ancient giants who once lived in their land, and in the Pacific Islands, the mythologies of giant ancestors are widespread. These are not isolated myths. They're shared across cultures that were separated by vast distances, cultures with no known contact with one another. So what does this tell us? The consistency of these stories suggests that giants may have been a reality at some point in human history, or at least that ancient people believed they were. The connection between giants and ancient civilizations becomes even more intriguing when we begin to examine the physical evidence, or the lack of it. For centuries, there have been reports of giant skeletons being unearthed across the globe. In North America, the 19th century saw a surge in the discovery of giant remains. Archaeologists and explorers working in ancient burial mounds and caves reported finding human bones of extraordinary size. In one such discovery, an 8-foot-tall skull was uncovered in a burial mound in Ohio, leading to speculation that these were the remains of an ancient race of giants. But these discoveries were often met with skepticism, and the remains were either discarded or quietly removed from public view. Why would such remarkable finds be suppressed? Why were these giant bones not displayed in museums or studied by the scientific community? The mystery deepens when we consider the sheer volume of such discoveries. In the early 1800s, reports of giant skeletons found in the mounds of the American Midwest became so common that the findings were noted in local newspapers. The skeletons were described as being up to 12 feet tall, with skulls so large that they seemed to belong to a completely different species. But despite these reports, the discoveries were quickly forgotten, and the skeletons vanished into obscurity. Some accounts suggest that the bones were taken by authorities or destroyed, while others claim that they were simply never mentioned again. What were these giant remains, and why were they hidden from the public eye? Could these bones be the missing link to a lost chapter in human history, one that tells the story of a race of giants who once walked the earth? The suppression of these findings is not the only piece of the puzzle. The very existence of giant skeletons challenges the mainstream narrative of human evolution. According to conventional history, humans evolved over millions of years from smaller, more primitive beings. The idea that giants once walked the earth contradicts this narrative and raises unsettling questions about the true origins of humanity. Were giants an early branch of human evolution, one that was erased from history by the victors of time? Or were they something entirely different, perhaps a separate race altogether, one that existed alongside early humans, but was eventually wiped out by natural or man-made forces? Could it be that the suppression of giant skeletons is part of a larger conspiracy to rewrite history? Some researchers argue that the discovery of giants would have profound implications for our understanding of ancient civilizations. The existence of such beings would challenge our entire understanding of human history and the development of civilization. If giants once existed, then what does that mean for the origins of ancient cultures? Could giants have been the builders of the massive stone structures found around the world, such as the pyramids of Egypt, the megalithic ruins of Stonehenge, or the enigmatic structures in ancient Peru? The sheer scale of these ancient constructions suggests that they may have been created by a race of beings who were much larger and stronger than modern humans. In fact, many alternative historians and researchers believe that the giants were responsible for some of the most extraordinary feats of ancient engineering. The massive stones used to build the pyramids, for example, weigh several tons each. How could ancient humans have transported and lifted such enormous blocks without the help of advanced machinery? Some believe that the giants may have had the physical strength to move these stones, or that they were assisted by an unknown form of technology that has since been lost to history. If giants were real, could they have played a role in shaping the world as we know it? Could they have been the forgotten architects of ancient civilizations? The question of giants is further complicated by the fact that many ancient texts and archaeological findings appear to point to a global connection between the giants and their civilization. In the Bible, the Nephilim are described as giants who lived before the Great Flood, suggesting that they may have been part of an earlier epoch in Earth's history. Similarly, the Titans of Greek mythology were said to have existed before the rise of the Olympian gods, and the giants of Norse mythology were believed to have once ruled over the earth. In many indigenous cultures, giants are said to have played a crucial role in shaping the land, creating mountains and valleys, or even carving out entire continents. The widespread nature of these stories suggests that the giants were not merely localized to one region, but were part of a larger, global phenomenon. Were the giants part of a single civilization that spanned the earth? Or were they a scattered people, with each culture interpreting their presence in different ways? This global connection between giants raises even more questions. If the giants once ruled the earth, what happened to them? Were they destroyed in a great cataclysm? As many ancient cultures believe, the idea of a catastrophic event wiping out an entire civilization is a common theme in ancient mythology. In the Bible, the Great Flood is said to have destroyed the Nephilim, while the Greeks believed that the Titans were defeated and cast into the underworld. Could it be that the giants were wiped out in a similar way, leaving behind only scattered remnants of their once great civilization? Or could it be that they simply disappeared, retreating into the shadows of history, leaving us with nothing but the faintest trace of their existence? Whatever the truth may be, the stories of giants are too widespread and too consistent to ignore. The evidence, both physical and mythological, suggests that giants may have once walked the earth, leaving behind a legacy that has been deliberately hidden from public view. The question is not whether giants existed, but why they have been erased from history. What are we being kept from learning? Could the discovery of giants change the way we understand the past, and perhaps even the future? As we dig deeper into the mystery of the giants, we are forced to reconsider everything we know about human history and the hidden forces that may have shaped it. In the early 1800s, when the world was still on the cusp of modern archaeology and exploration, an extraordinary series of discoveries began to surface. These weren't the typical findings of bones or artifacts one might expect, but something far more unusual. Bones of immense size, skeletal remains that would defy our very concept of human anatomy. In places like Ohio, New York, and other areas across the American Midwest, reports of giant skeletons began to emerge, often found in ancient burial mounds and caves that dotted the landscape. These were not the remains of ordinary people. These were beings who towered above the rest, their bones larger, their skulls more massive, their stature unfathomable. How could such beings have existed in a time that many thought was exclusively inhabited by smaller humans, creatures akin to what we know today? Could these bones be proof of a forgotten race, one whose existence had been deliberately buried, erased from history? In Ohio, in the 1830s, there was an alarming discovery made in a mound near the banks of the Scioto River. The skeleton found was unlike any human remains ever seen before. Measuring over 10 feet in length, the bones were described as unusually thick, the skull so large that it could fit in a basket meant for a much larger creature. This discovery caught the attention of many at the time, drawing the eyes of local authorities, archaeologists, and journalists. However, before the remains could be thoroughly examined, they were quickly moved, and their existence soon slipped from public view. What happened to these bones? Why was there no public exhibition, no scientific analysis that could confirm their origins and the significance of their size? Was it possible that the discovery of such an extraordinary skeleton was too much for society to handle? Could it have threatened the established narratives of human history, challenging everything we thought we knew about the past? This pattern of sudden disappearance or suppression continued in the decades that followed. Similar finds were reported in various regions of North America. In New York, in 1873, another large skeleton was uncovered, this one measuring over 9 feet in height. Just as before, the skeleton was taken from the site and either destroyed or quietly stored away. As the years passed, many other similar reports emerged, each one more intriguing than the last. In Wisconsin, the remains of a 12-foot-tall giant were unearthed, its bones so large that they seemed to belong to another species entirely. The reports of these finds, along with the descriptions of their immense size, sparked a frenzy of speculation. Were these remains proof of an ancient race of giants? Could they have been the ancestors of the civilizations that predated recorded history? The evidence was mounting, but it was also being swiftly dismissed or obscured. What was the real reason for the cover-up? One could speculate that these discoveries were too much to comprehend in an age where mainstream science and archaeology were beginning to establish rigid ideas about human history. The idea of giant human beings walking the earth, a race that could have coexisted with ancient civilizations, was a concept that threatened to upend everything scholars and scientists had believed about the development of humanity. The idea that such beings might have been wiped out by a cataclysmic event, or that their history was too dangerous to reveal, was a notion that would likely have been resisted. Could the bones of these giants have been erased for fear of exposing a truth that challenged the very foundation of human history as we know it? What is perhaps even more curious is the lack of any proper scientific analysis of the remains that were found. In every instance, the giant skeletons were quickly taken away, the remains removed from public display. The authorities involved in these early excavations rarely allowed the findings to undergo the rigorous scrutiny of modern archaeological and anthropological standards. Could it be that the public's fascination with the discovery of giants was seen as a threat to the control over historical narratives? And if so, why? The absence of proper documentation or scientific examination raises troubling questions about the transparency of the investigations. Were the remains simply too extraordinary to be considered legitimate by those in charge? Or was there something more sinister at play? A concerted effort to suppress the truth? Further compounding the mystery, there are claims that some of these giant remains, after being removed from the original sites, were never seen again. In some cases, it has been suggested that the bones were taken by government officials or private collectors who had an interest in keeping the discovery under wraps. The secrecy surrounding these finds has led many to speculate that there was a deliberate cover-up, one designed to keep the truth about these ancient giants from reaching the public. Were these remains stored away in private collections, hidden from the view of the world, or were they destroyed altogether? The absence of tangible evidence only fuels the speculation and the theory that these skeletons represented something so significant that the powers that be could not allow them to be made public. Even more puzzling is the lack of any large-scale excavation or scientific exploration of the burial mounds that supposedly contained these giant remains. In the 19th century, as the mounds of the American Midwest were being unearthed, there was an increasing interest in the ancient cultures that had built them. Archaeologists began digging through these mounds, uncovering burial sites and relics that seem to point to a highly sophisticated culture long before the arrival of European settlers. But amid the discovery of pottery, tools, and human remains, no concerted effort was made to explore the possibility of a race of giants having once lived there. Could this have been another deliberate act of suppression? After all, if these mounds contained evidence of giants, it would force us to rethink our entire understanding of pre-Columbian history in the Americas. It would show that the indigenous cultures who inhabited this land were not the only ones to leave their mark on the soil. Despite these efforts to bury the findings, rumors of giant remains continued to spread. In the early 1900s, there were several reports from the American Southwest of large bones being uncovered in ancient ruins. In one case, a skeleton measuring over 11 feet was reportedly found in a cave near the Grand Canyon. And once again, the remains were quietly removed, with no further information released to the public. This time, however, whispers began to circulate that the U.S. government was involved in keeping the discovery a secret. The rumors were fueled by the fact that the Grand Canyon area, along with much of the southwestern United States, was known to have been home to several ancient cultures, including the Anasazi and Hopi, whose myths contained references to giants. Could it be that the government was suppressing this information to avoid further complicating its official narrative about the history of the region? As the years passed and the evidence for giant skeletons mounted, the search for answers only intensified. In the 20th century, with the advent of modern archaeology and new techniques for uncovering and studying ancient remains, one would think that the truth about the giants might finally come to light. But despite the technology available, no large-scale excavation was ever conducted on the burial mounds or sites where these giant bones have been found. This is perhaps the most perplexing aspect of the entire mystery, the lack of serious scientific inquiry into a discovery that could have rewritten the entire history of humankind. Today, much of the evidence of these ancient giants has either vanished or been obscured by decades of neglect. The reports and newspaper articles from the 1800s, which once detailed the findings of these giant skeletons, have been relegated to dusty archives, with no significant follow-up or investigation. The bones that were once described as proof of a lost race of giants are now mere footnotes in the history of archaeology, overshadowed by more conventional discoveries. But the question remains, were these discoveries the beginning of a much larger mystery? Was there a concerted effort to suppress the truth about the giants? And if so, why? Could it be that we are on the brink of uncovering a history that has been hidden for centuries? One that could alter our understanding of human origins and the civilizations that preceded us? As we continue to search for answers, one thing becomes clear. The mystery of the giants is far from over. The bones may have disappeared, the evidence may have been buried, but the questions remain. And the more we dig into the past, the more we uncover about the forces that have shaped our history, the more we begin to wonder what other truths have been kept hidden from us. The story of the giants may have been silenced for now, but the mystery will not fade away. It will continue to haunt us, waiting for the day when we can finally uncover the truth about the ancient beings who once walked the earth. When we look at the skeletal remains that have been uncovered, especially those that are claimed to be giants, something truly fascinating begins to emerge. These bones, some of which are far larger than what we would expect from a regular human, point to an unsettling possibility that a race of beings far bigger than any humans we know might have once walked the earth. The first question that comes to mind is, how do we even begin to understand the significance of these remains? What exactly do these bones tell us about the giants that supposedly inhabited our world? And how do they differ from the human skeletons we are familiar with today? A closer look at the anatomy of these skeletal remains reveals some startling differences. The most obvious and striking feature of these giant skeletons is the sheer size of the bones. The length of the femurs, the width of the ribs, and the size of the skulls are all out of proportion to what we typically see in modern humans. In some cases, these bones are described as being several times larger than what is considered normal. For instance, one of the most discussed finds comes from a site in North America where a 12-foot skeleton was unearthed. The leg bones alone were so large that they were said to resemble the limbs of a large elephant more than a human. Similarly, the skulls found alongside these remains often show unusual characteristics. They are larger, with elongated craniums and massive eye sockets, suggesting that the beings they belonged to were not like anything we would recognize as human. Interestingly, the characteristics of these giant remains suggest that they were not simply exaggerated human beings, but something far more extraordinary. Their skeletal structure implies that they were stronger, more robust, and physically superior to the human beings that currently inhabit the planet. The bones are thicker and denser, a sign that the giants may have had far greater muscle mass and physical endurance than we can comprehend. If these beings were indeed humans, then they would have needed to possess extraordinary physical abilities to support their enormous frames. Could they have been a separate species altogether, or were they simply a different version of humanity, one that existed in a parallel line of evolution that has long since been forgotten? Another striking feature that sets these giant skeletons apart from modern human remains is the size of their skulls. The skulls discovered in these archaeological sites often measure much larger than anything seen in contemporary human beings. The most notable feature is the pronounced brow ridges and the expansive cranial vault, suggesting an advanced brain capacity. Were these giants simply humans with superior intelligence, or were they, as some researchers speculate, an entirely different species that may have evolved under different conditions? The sheer size of their heads raises questions not only about their physical capabilities, but also their mental faculties. If these beings were as intelligent as they were strong, it could explain why they were able to build the massive structures and monuments that some ancient cultures left behind, structures that we, even with our modern technology, cannot seem to replicate. What is perhaps even more fascinating is the ongoing debate over the possibility of these giant skeletons being remnants of a race that existed long before recorded history. Could they have been part of a lost civilization, a race that predated everything we know about human history? Could they have been responsible for some of the incredible feats of engineering and construction that we associate with ancient cultures? The size and structure of the bones found in burial mounds, caves, and ruins suggest that these beings may have had the strength and capabilities to construct massive structures that seem impossible for modern humans to replicate. Could they have built the pyramids of Egypt, the megalithic structures in South America, or the ancient ruins scattered across Europe and Asia? These extraordinary constructions, which are often considered beyond the capabilities of ancient humans, may have actually been the work of a race far more powerful and skilled than we have ever imagined. Moreover, the existence of these giant skeletons raises important questions about the role they may have played in the shaping of ancient civilizations. The sheer scale of these skeletons suggests that these beings were capable of exerting enormous physical force. Could they have been warriors, leaders, or even gods in the eyes of the people who encountered them? In many cultures, giants were not merely depicted as monstrous creatures, but were often seen as gods or deities. The gods of Greek mythology, such as the Titans, were described as beings of great size and power. Similarly, in Norse mythology, the Jotnar, or giants, were believed to be the first inhabitants of the earth, the primal beings who shaped the world before the arrival of the gods. Could these myths be based on real encounters with giant beings, or were they simply symbolic representations of a long-forgotten race of humans? It is impossible to ignore the striking similarities between the descriptions of these giants in ancient texts and the skeletal remains that have been uncovered in recent centuries. But the most compelling argument in favor of these giant skeletons being evidence of a lost race comes from the advanced physical features found in their remains. The bones are not only larger, but more robust, implying a higher degree of strength and resilience than what we see in modern humans. The thick, heavy bones suggest that the giants may have had a far greater muscle mass and skeletal density, enabling them to support their larger frames. This would have made them physically superior to the humans we know today, and it could explain why they were able to perform feats of strength and endurance that seem impossible for us to comprehend. In addition, the size and robustness of their bones imply that these giants may have been able to survive in harsh conditions, thriving in environments that would have been too extreme for normal humans. Could they have lived in climates or regions that modern humans would find inhospitable? And did they possess technologies or survival strategies that allowed them to adapt to these environments? The mystery surrounding these giant skeletons deepens when we consider the potential for genetic mutations or evolutionary divergence. Could these giants have been a separate subspecies of humanity, or were they the result of a unique genetic mutation that allowed them to grow to such extraordinary sizes? The discovery of gigantism in modern humans, though rare, suggests that such extreme physical characteristics are not entirely outside the realm of possibility. Could these ancient giants have been the result of a similar genetic mutation, one that occurred in a specific lineage of humans or pre-humans? If this is the case, then we must ask, why did they disappear? What caused this race of giants to vanish from the historical record, leaving only the faintest trace of their existence behind? Perhaps the most intriguing possibility is that these giants were part of an entirely different chapter in human history, one that has been intentionally erased or obscured. The discovery of such extraordinary skeletons would not only challenge our understanding of human evolution, but would also force us to rethink everything we know about ancient civilizations and their achievements. Could the giants have been the true architects of the great monuments and structures of the ancient world? Could they have been responsible for building the vast stone temples of Egypt, the complex astronomical structures of Stonehenge, or the ancient cities of the Americas? Their size and strength would have made them the ideal candidates for such monumental tasks, and their disappearance could explain the sudden loss of knowledge and technology that we now attribute to the fall of great civilizations. If we accept the possibility that these giant remains were not just the bones of ancient humans, but the remains of a race with superior physical abilities, then the implications for our understanding of history become staggering. Could it be that we have been taught a false narrative of human evolution, one that fails to account for the existence of such a remarkable race? If these giants once walked the earth, then the story of humanity's rise and fall could be far more complex than we have ever imagined. Could these giant beings have been part of a larger, hidden history, one that has been deliberately obscured by those who wish to keep us from knowing the truth? The evidence is tantalizing, but the answers remain elusive, locked away in the bones of a forgotten race. The only question left to answer is whether we are willing to dig deeper, to uncover the mysteries buried beneath the earth, and to confront the possibility that our understanding of human history is far from complete. As we continue to piece together the puzzle of the giant skeletons and their possible role in human history, another key aspect emerges, one that stretches the boundaries of our imagination and challenges our understanding of ancient knowledge and technology. What if the giants weren't just isolated beings who lived and died long before recorded history? What if their legacy extends far beyond their bones, embedded in the very structures and technologies that ancient civilizations left behind? Across the world, there are enigmatic monuments, ancient ruins, and mysterious sites that seem too advanced for the time periods in which they were built. Could these be the work of giants? Or, at the very least, could the knowledge that enabled their construction have come from a race of beings who were not quite human, but something much more extraordinary? When we consider some of the greatest architectural marvels of the ancient world, we are left wondering how such intricate and massive structures could have been built with the limited tools and technology that were available at the time. The pyramids of Giza, for example, stand as one of the most famous and awe-inspiring monuments on the planet. These massive structures were built with precision that modern engineering still struggles to replicate. The sheer size of the stones used in the construction, many weighing several tons, raises a fundamental question. How could ancient humans have moved and lifted these massive blocks without the aid of advanced technology? Some researchers have proposed that the construction of such monuments could have been the work of giants, beings with the physical strength to lift and move such enormous stones. But there's more. The engineering and astronomical alignments of the pyramids suggest an advanced knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and geometry, fields of study that, by all accounts, should not have been within the grasp of ancient civilizations. Could this knowledge have been passed down from giants, who had access to advanced technologies and skills far beyond the reach of ordinary humans? Across the globe, similar questions arise when we examine other ancient sites. Stonehenge, for example, is a massive stone circle in England that dates back thousands of years. The stones that make up Stonehenge weigh several tons each, and it is still unclear exactly how the ancient people who constructed it managed to transport and position them. The precision with which the stones were arranged, as well as their alignment with celestial events such as solstices, suggests that the builders had an advanced understanding of astronomy. Could this knowledge have been handed down by a race of beings who were far more advanced than the humans of their time? Beings whose size and strength allowed them to move and work with materials that would have been impossible for ordinary humans? The theory that giants could have been involved in the construction of such structures is not as far-fetched as it may seem. The myths and legends for various cultures suggest that giants were not only powerful, but also incredibly skilled in various forms of craft and knowledge. Could they have been the architects of these ancient wonders, leaving behind clues to their existence in the very stones they left behind? Similarly, the ancient megalithic sites found in Peru, such as Machu Picchu, raise similar questions. These sites are famous for their massive stone blocks, many of which weigh several tons and fit together so perfectly that no mortar was needed to hold them in place. The precision with which these stones were cut and the complexity of the structures they form suggest a level of craftsmanship that seems beyond the capabilities of the civilizations that are thought to have built them. Could the giants have been responsible for the construction of these megalithic cities, using their immense strength and advanced knowledge of engineering to create something that still baffles modern archaeologists? Many of the stories from local indigenous cultures point to a time long before the Inca Empire, when the children of the sun, or gods, came down from the heavens to build the great cities. Could these gods have been giants, beings of extraordinary size and power, who built these cities with the knowledge and tools that were passed down through generations of their kind? The construction of these monumental structures is not the only area in which the giants' legacy might be felt. In fact, the very foundations of some of the most mysterious technologies in human history could point to their influence. Take, for example, the ancient art of metallurgy. Some researchers believe that the knowledge of advanced metalworking techniques, such as forging iron or creating alloys, may have been passed down by a race of beings far older and more knowledgeable than the humans of ancient times. The discovery of ancient iron artifacts in places where iron was not known to be naturally occurring has led some to speculate that these materials came from extraterrestrial sources or that ancient civilizations had access to advanced technologies that have since been lost. Could the giants have been the ones to introduce these advanced techniques to early humans, sharing their knowledge of metallurgy, building, and engineering before they disappeared? But the mystery doesn't end there. The idea that giants may have played a key role in the development of early civilization also extends to the realm of agriculture and food production. In many ancient cultures, there are stories of gods or giants who taught humans how to cultivate the land, how to grow crops, and how to harvest food. The ancient Sumerians, for example, believed that their gods came down from the heavens to teach them the secrets of agriculture. Similarly, the Maya and Aztec civilizations both had myths of gods or giants who taught their ancestors the skills necessary to thrive in a harsh and unforgiving environment. Could these myths be based on a kernel of truth? Could the giants have been the ones to teach early humans how to live off the land, passing on their knowledge of farming, irrigation, and animal husbandry before they vanished from the earth? What makes these stories even more compelling is the widespread nature of the myths surrounding giants and their role in shaping human civilization. From the stories of the Nephilim in the Bible to the accounts of the Titans in Greek mythology, from the Jotnar in Norse lore to the giants of Native American tradition, the idea that giants were once among us is pervasive across cultures and continents. These myths do not exist in isolation. They share common themes and elements that suggest a shared cultural memory of a race of beings that once walked the earth. The fact that these stories exist in so many disparate cultures raises the question, could there be a real historical basis behind them? Could these stories be the remnants of ancient knowledge, passed down through generations, of a race of giants who once helped shape the course of human history? And yet, as we attempt to piece together this ancient puzzle, we are met with resistance at every turn. Mainstream archaeology and history continue to dismiss the idea of giants as fanciful myths or misunderstandings of ancient peoples. The remains of giant skeletons that have been uncovered over the years are often dismissed as anomalies, with mainstream researchers arguing that they were simply the result of a condition known as gigantism, a medical disorder that causes excessive growth. But this explanation seems insufficient when we look at the sheer size and consistency of the skeletons that have been found. Could there truly have been a race of humans who grew to such an extraordinary size? Or is it more likely that these remains belong to a different species entirely, one that was physically and intellectually superior to modern humans? The suppression of these findings only adds to the intrigue. If the discovery of giants truly has the potential to rewrite history, then it stands to reason that those in power would do everything in their ability to suppress this information. Could the governments, institutions, and elites who control the narrative of human history have worked together to hide the truth about these giants? If so, what were they trying to protect? Was it the fear that the knowledge of such beings could undermine the very foundation of modern civilization? Or could there be a more sinister motive behind the deliberate erasure of this part of history? The mystery of the giants is not only a question of lost history. It is a question of why it was lost in the first place. The more we investigate, the more we uncover about the giants' legacy, and the more we are forced to confront the possibility that humanity's true origins have been deliberately hidden. Could the giants have played a key role in the development of ancient civilizations? Or was their purpose something far greater, perhaps tied to the origins of our species itself? The answers may never be fully revealed, but one thing is clear. The legacy of the giants is far more complex and far-reaching than we have ever been led to believe. Their knowledge, their power, and their influence may still be felt today, hidden beneath the surface of history, waiting to be discovered by those daring enough to uncover the truth. As we continue to explore the enigma of the giants and their place in history, it becomes evident that the story doesn't end with the discovery of skeletal remains and ancient texts. In fact, the trail grows even more mysterious as we delve into the role of giants in a larger tapestry of global mythology and ancient belief systems. These beings were not merely figures in folklore or exaggerated myths. They were often revered, feared, and seen as the architects of the very world in which they lived. From the stories passed down through generations in every corner of the earth, it appears that the giants were seen not only as mighty and powerful beings, but as pivotal players in the shaping of humanity's cultural and spiritual foundations. Could these ancient legends be rooted in something far more tangible than we have ever been led to believe? The sheer ubiquity of giant lore across cultures raises intriguing questions about the universality of these beings. How did so many cultures, scattered across vast geographical distances, all share similar stories of giants, gods, and titans? The Greeks spoke of the Titans, powerful beings who predated the gods of Mount Olympus, whose wars shaped the very foundation of the cosmos. The Romans adopted similar tales, with gods and giants interwoven in their myths, their battles symbolizing the eternal struggle between chaos and order, between nature and civilization. Similarly, in Norse mythology, the Jotnar, or giants, were seen as the primordial forces of ice and fire, often depicted as enemies of the gods but also the creators of the world itself. The influence of these giants was pervasive, and they were integral to the stories of creation, destruction, and rebirth. These powerful beings were not simply seen as antagonists, but as essential components in a mythological framework that guided the beliefs of ancient peoples. Even in cultures far removed from Europe, the influence of giants is felt in the very foundation of spiritual beliefs. In the Americas, many indigenous tribes speak of giants who once roamed the earth. The Sioux, for example, have tales of giant beings who were said to have lived in the mountains, their footprints leaving marks on the land. In the Pacific Islands, the Maori speak of the Turuhu, a race of giant people who were believed to be the original inhabitants of the land, teaching the first humans the secrets of survival and the art of hunting. The evidence for giants in these cultures is often seen in the form of massive stones, ancient tools, and carvings that suggest the presence of beings who were much larger than any humans living today. These giants were often seen as the ancestors of human beings, beings who had passed down knowledge and wisdom before disappearing or retreating into the shadowy recesses of history. How is it possible that these tales of giants, so similar in nature, appear in cultures that had no contact with one another? In the East, giant legends take on a slightly different form, but still point to a common thread. In Hindu mythology, the Asuras, powerful beings often depicted as giants, are considered to be the early gods, beings who possessed immense strength and wisdom. Their stories are intertwined with those of the Devas, the gods who would eventually overthrow them in an eternal battle for cosmic dominance. In China, the myths surrounding the ancient emperors often feature encounters with beings of great size and power, from the legendary figures like Pangu, who created the world from chaos, to the giants of the mountains and rivers, who helped shape the land and its people. Even in Japan, the story of the Oni, massive creatures from folklore, features giants who were once the terror of the human world. These tales, though rooted in different cultural contexts, share a strikingly similar portrayal of giants as ancient, powerful beings who were involved in the creation and shaping of the world. But why are these stories so similar across such vast distances and diverse cultures? The common thread between them seems undeniable. Giants were not only real figures in these mythologies, but they were believed to have played a pivotal role in the creation of the world and the shaping of early civilizations. The presence of these beings in the earliest spiritual and cultural stories across the globe suggests that the giants may not simply be the product of creative myth-making. Rather, they may have been a fundamental part of the collective human consciousness, deeply embedded in the origins of human belief systems. Could these myths, passed down over millennia, be evidence of an actual historical event, one that involved the interaction between humans and giants, beings who had a profound influence on the ancient world? As we dig deeper into the physical evidence of these giants, it becomes increasingly difficult to ignore the connection between their skeletal remains and the giant myths of antiquity. Many of the burial sites where giant remains have been uncovered show evidence of complex ritual practices. The size and positioning of the bones suggest that these beings were not treated as mere mortals, but were given special status, often buried with treasures, weapons, and artifacts that indicated their importance. In some instances, the remains were placed in elaborate tombs, sometimes accompanied by ritualistic offerings. The sheer scale of these burial practices suggests that the giants were revered as powerful figures, potentially seen as gods or demigods by those who buried them. Could the giants have been the rulers of ancient civilizations, the deities who oversaw the early stages of human development? And if so, why was their existence erased from the historical record? One possibility is that the giants were part of a civilization far older than the one we recognize today, a civilization that existed during a period of Earth's history that predates even the earliest known human societies. This civilization, possibly responsible for building many of the ancient megalithic structures found around the world, may have been destroyed or wiped out in a cataclysmic event. Could this event have been the biblical flood, the great deluge that wiped out the Nephilim, or some other global catastrophe that brought an end to a golden age of giants? The idea of a lost civilization, one that predates recorded history and whose legacy has been buried beneath the sands of time, is a theme that runs through many of the world's ancient myths and legends. The tales of Atlantis, for instance, speak of a powerful civilization that was destroyed in a cataclysm, its knowledge and technology lost forever. Could the giants have been the inhabitants of such a civilization? And if so, what was the true cause of their demise? The mystery deepens when we consider the implications of such a lost civilization. If giants were indeed part of an ancient race of beings who had access to advanced knowledge, technology, and wisdom, then it stands to reason that their fall from power would have left a lasting imprint on the world. The myths of their demise, whether through divine punishment, natural disaster, or warfare, will have shaped the collective memory of humanity, passed down through generations as a warning of what happens when a great civilization falls. The survivors of this cataclysm may have been forced to rebuild from the ashes, their knowledge of the giants and their advanced civilization gradually fading into myth and legend. Could the giants have left behind clues to their existence, buried in the ruins of their lost cities and the artifacts that remain scattered across the earth? And if these clues still exist, what do they tell us about the true nature of humanity's origins and the role that giants played in shaping the course of history? Even in the modern era, the myths of giants continue to resonate with us. The stories of their strength, wisdom, and power are deeply embedded in our collective imagination, and the possibility that giants once roamed the earth sparks a sense of wonder and awe. Could it be that the giants were not just a figment of ancient storytellers' imaginations, but a lost chapter in human history, one that has been deliberately hidden or erased over time? The myths and legends of giants, passed down through millennia, may be our only clue to a lost age, a time when beings of immense size and power walked the earth, shaping the world in ways we can only begin to understand. In the end, the mystery of the giants forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths. If these beings were real, then what does it mean for our understanding of history and human origins? Could the history we have been taught be incomplete, or worse, deliberately falsified? The giants represent not just a forgotten chapter of history, but a profound challenge to our conception of the past. As we continue to explore their legacy, one thing becomes clear. The giants are not just the stuff of myth, they're an integral part of the human story, waiting to be rediscovered, their secrets waiting to be revealed. As we step further into the complex narrative surrounding the giants, it becomes increasingly difficult to ignore the overwhelming body of evidence that seems to support the notion of their existence, not only in ancient times, but possibly extending into more recent history. The accounts of massive skeletal remains, the staggering architectural feats, and the shared cultural memory across civilizations all point to a deeper truth. Giants were not simply the stuff of folklore, but may have played a central role in shaping the world as we know it. However, the more we uncover, the more perplexing the mystery becomes. Why, then, has this evidence been suppressed or obscured? What is the real reason behind the widespread denial of giants' existence, even when physical evidence is staring us in the face? The first clue lies in the very nature of the suppression itself. For decades, stories have emerged of giant skeletons being unearthed, only to mysteriously disappear or be dismissed by mainstream archaeology. Researchers and journalists alike have reported instances where giant remains were found in burial mounds or caves, only for those remains to be quickly removed or confiscated, often with little to no explanation. In some cases, the remains were said to be lost, destroyed in floods, or buried so deeply that they could never be retrieved again. The question that immediately arises is, why this secrecy? If these remains were truly of human origin, why not allow scientists to study them openly and share the findings with the public? What is the reason for this veil of silence that surrounds the discovery of giant skeletons? Could it be that these discoveries present a truth that the powers in charge are not ready or willing to accept? One possible explanation is the idea that the existence of giants challenges the very foundation of modern history and anthropology. The established narrative of human evolution, with its gradual progression from primitive hominids to the modern human, leaves little room for beings of such extraordinary size and strength. The idea that a race of giants could have once existed on Earth sharing the planet with the ancestors of modern humans, disrupts everything we think we know about the history of mankind. It would force us to reconsider the timeline of human development, suggesting that there may have been other intelligent, physically superior species on Earth long before our recorded history began. This could have profound implications not only for our understanding of our own origins, but also for the way we view ancient civilizations and their accomplishments. If giants were real, then what does that say about our history? Could the ancient civilizations we now admire, such as the Egyptians, the Sumerians, or the Maya, have been influenced by these beings in ways that we cannot even begin to imagine? Did the giants play a role in the creation of the megalithic structures that still baffle us today? The massive stones of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the precision-cut blocks of Machu Picchu, and the monolithic columns of Stonehenge seem to defy the capabilities of ancient societies. Could these remarkable feats of engineering have been the work of giants, beings of immense size and strength, who could have lifted and positioned these enormous stones without the need for modern technology? The sheer scale of these monuments suggests that they were constructed by hands capable of extraordinary feats of strength, and if giants were indeed a part of ancient history, it is not hard to imagine them as the labor force behind such grand constructions. This theory is further supported by the fact that many of the myths surrounding these ancient sites describe beings of great stature as the creators or builders of such monumental structures. The ancient Sumerians, for example, spoke of the Anunnaki, a race of gods who came from the heavens and imparted their knowledge to humanity. According to some interpretations, the Anunnaki were giants, beings who were far larger and stronger than human beings, and who helped shape the early civilizations of Mesopotamia. Similarly, the Egyptians have their own stories of gods and titans who walked among humans, teaching them the arts of building, agriculture, and governance. Could these ancient gods have been giants, beings whose physical presence left an indelible mark on the cultures that followed? The common thread running through these stories is the idea that giants were not merely figures of myth, but were seen as integral to the development of human civilization. Moreover, there are persistent rumors of suppressed archaeological findings that suggest not only the presence of giants, but the existence of ancient advanced civilizations that predate recorded history. One such theory is that the giants were part of a forgotten race, one that existed long before the rise of known civilizations. These giants may have possessed technologies and knowledge that were far beyond what we currently understand, leaving behind clues that are slowly being uncovered. Some have even proposed that these giants were part of a global network of civilizations that spanned the Earth long before the rise of ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. If true, this would mean that the history we know is only a fraction of the full story, with much of the past deliberately erased, hidden, or lost over time. There is also the compelling theory that the giants' disappearance was not a natural one, but rather the result of a deliberate cover-up or cataclysmic event. If these beings were indeed as advanced and powerful as some suggest, their sudden absence from the historical record would imply that something catastrophic occurred to wipe them from existence. Was it a global flood, a war, or a technological disaster that caused the giants to vanish? Or perhaps the giants themselves were driven into extinction by other forces, rival civilizations, natural disasters, or even a gradual erosion of their power and influence. Whatever the cause, their disappearance would have had a profound impact on the societies that followed. The legends of giants, passed down through countless generations, may be the last remnants of a once great civilization that was lost to the annals of time. In examining these possibilities, we are also confronted with the idea that the giants may have been deliberately erased from the history books for reasons that go beyond mere scientific oversight. Could the existence of such powerful beings have threatened the established order? Could the giants have been viewed as a challenge to the authority of the ruling elites, whose power and control over the population may have been threatened by the revelation of a forgotten race that was superior in strength and knowledge? History is often written by those in power, and if the giants were seen as a threat to the established narrative, their existence could have been conveniently swept under the rug. The suppression of evidence, then, could be a means of maintaining control over the historical narrative, ensuring that certain truths never see the light of day. What makes this theory even more compelling is the fact that some of the most significant discoveries of giant remains seem to have occurred during periods of intense cultural and political upheaval. In the early 1800s, for example, when many of the giant skeletons were first uncovered, the United States was undergoing rapid expansion, driven by a growing sense of manifest destiny. The discovery of giant remains could have posed a challenge to the emerging narrative of American exceptionalism, which sought to frame the country as the culmination of human progress. Similarly, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, when the age of imperialism was in full swing, the idea of a forgotten race of giants could have undermined the colonial narrative, which sought to justify the domination of indigenous peoples by casting them as primitive. By suppressing these discoveries, the powers that be were able to maintain control over the historical narrative, preserving the illusion of a linear, progressive history that placed Western civilization at the top of the evolutionary ladder. But even more fascinating is the idea that the giants may have been connected to ancient knowledge that has been lost to us. The possibility that the giants were the keepers of forgotten wisdom, knowledge of the cosmos, advanced mathematics, and engineering opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. If these beings possessed knowledge that was far beyond the capabilities of their contemporaries, could it be that this knowledge was passed down through the ages, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be rediscovered? From sacred texts to ancient monuments, could the giants have left behind clues to their once great civilization, clues that we are only now beginning to decipher? And if this knowledge was deliberately hidden or destroyed, what does that say about the true nature of our history? The giant remains that have been uncovered are not just relics of a bygone age. They are windows into a past that we have yet to fully comprehend. The stories of giants are not mere mythological tales. They may hold the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of who we are and where we come from. The mystery of the giants, what they were, why they disappeared, and what they left behind, remains one of the most profound puzzles of human history. As we continue to explore these questions, we are forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that much of our history has been shaped by forces beyond our understanding, and that the giants, if they existed, may have been the ones who helped shape that history in ways we are only beginning to realize. The question is no longer whether giants existed, but rather what their existence means for our understanding of the past, and what it might reveal about the future. As we journey further into the mystery of the giants, one must also consider the deeper implications of their existence for the world we inhabit today. If a race of beings of immense size, strength, and perhaps intelligence, once roamed the earth, leaving behind only faint traces in the form of ancient ruins and skeletal remains, then the questions become far more profound than mere historical curiosity. What does it mean for our current understanding of the world? Could the giants have left us clues that we are only beginning to decipher? What is the true nature of the hidden history they may have shaped? And how does this knowledge, if unlocked, alter the fabric of our modern reality? The most immediate consequence of revisiting the giants' existence is the revelation of our own place in history. If giants were indeed once part of the Earth's ecosystem, existing alongside early human populations or even predating them, then the conventional timeline of human evolution would be called into question. Mainstream science posits that modern humans evolved through a slow process of natural selection, with early hominids evolving over millions of years into Homo sapiens, the species we recognize today. However, the presence of giants, beings far larger than contemporary humans, raises the possibility that our evolutionary history is more complicated than we have been led to believe. Were these giants a separate species that coexisted with early humans, or did they represent a divergent branch of humanity that became extinct long before recorded history? If so, what does that say about the processes of evolution, and how might this challenge our assumptions about human development? The very idea that a race of giants may have shared the earth with our ancestors also forces us to reconsider the origins of human civilization itself. Many ancient cultures have passed down legends of beings who not only walked among them, but shaped their societies and cultures. These giants were often described as deities, kings, or gods, beings who possessed vast wisdom, great strength, and extraordinary knowledge. The influence of these beings could have been felt across every aspect of human life: agriculture, architecture, governance, even religion. What if the giants were the original architects of human civilization, passing down knowledge of the stars, the building of massive structures, and the art of metallurgy? Could it be that the technologies and knowledge these beings possessed were handed down to early human civilizations, who were able to adapt and use this wisdom to form the foundations of their own societies? We see the evidence of this potential legacy in the awe-inspiring megalithic structures scattered across the globe. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, the pyramids of Teotihuacan. These colossal monuments continue to baffle modern archaeologists, whose best theories still fall short of explaining how they were constructed with the technology available at the time. The sheer scale of these structures, the precision with which they were built, and the astronomical alignments they possess suggest an advanced understanding of geometry, engineering, and astronomy, knowledge that should have been beyond the capabilities of ancient societies. Could this knowledge have been imparted to humans by giants, whose size and strength enabled them to build massive structures? And if so, what does that mean for our understanding of ancient civilizations and their supposed technological limitations? It is worth considering that the giants may have been instrumental not just in the construction of physical monuments, but in the establishment of spiritual and religious systems that have shaped cultures for millennia. The gods of many ancient religions, whether they are the Titans of Greek mythology, the Asuras of Hinduism, or the Jotnar of Norse lore, are often depicted as beings of enormous size and power. These gods were not only powerful, but were also believed to possess great wisdom, teaching humanity the fundamental principles of life, the universe, and everything within it. Could these giants have been the original gods of early human societies, revered as beings who were both physically superior and intellectually advanced? If so, their teachings could have shaped early spiritual systems, forming the foundation of religious practices and rituals that persist to this day. The legacy of the giants, therefore, may not only be found in physical structures, but in the very fabric of our beliefs and traditions. The idea that ancient cultures were influenced by a race of giant beings is not as outlandish as it may first seem. In fact, many religious texts, such as the Bible, contain references to giants. The Nephilim, described in the book of Genesis, are often considered to be the offspring of angels and human women, but some interpretations suggest that they may have been giant beings, humanoid in shape but far larger and more powerful than ordinary humans. Similarly, in many indigenous cultures across the Americas, giant figures appear in oral histories, sometimes as creators, sometimes as destroyers, but always as central figures in the stories of the land. This brings us to the critical point. If giants were not just mythological beings, but part of the real, physical history of the earth, then their influence could have been far-reaching. The stories of giants, passed down through generations, might hold within them not just the remnants of ancient myth, but the remnants of a lost history, one in which giants played an active role in shaping human societies, their culture, and their technological advancements. Could this lost history still be embedded in the very earth beneath our feet, hidden in ancient ruins, forgotten artifacts, and long-lost burial sites? The deeper we dig, the more questions arise about the true extent of the giants' influence on our world. Furthermore, it is not just their physical presence in ancient times that matters. It is also the potential for their reemergence in modern consciousness. As the world continues to grapple with questions of origins, history, and identity, the concept of the giants may serve as a bridge between the known and the unknown. The evidence of their existence, whether in the form of skeletal remains, ancient texts, or megalithic structures, forces us to confront the possibility that much of our understanding of human history has been filtered through a lens of selective storytelling. Could the giants be part of a larger narrative that has been intentionally obscured, kept hidden to maintain control over the accepted historical framework? What if the giants were not merely beings of the past, but were part of an ongoing mystery, a puzzle that is yet to be fully solved? In considering the implications of the giants' existence on a global scale, it is essential to ask what role their story might play in shaping our future. As humanity continues to push the boundaries of scientific discovery, space exploration, and technological advancement, could there be an awakening to the idea that our understanding of reality is far from complete? The search for knowledge, whether it takes the form of uncovering ancient artifacts or exploring the mysteries of the cosmos, is driven by the desire to understand our place in the universe. The story of the giants offers a tantalizing glimpse into a time when humanity may have had access to knowledge and power far beyond our current grasp. Could we one day uncover more of this ancient wisdom, buried deep beneath the surface of history, and unlock the secrets of the giants? This is where the story takes a curious turn. The giants' potential role in shaping the modern world does not merely rest in the distant past. It suggests that perhaps we are on the cusp of a new revelation, one that could forever alter our perception of history, of ourselves, and of our place in the universe. The giants, with their advanced knowledge, their physical superiority, and their mystical significance, may have left behind more than just bones and ruins. They may have left behind a legacy of hidden truths, truths that are waiting to be uncovered, reinterpreted, and integrated into the broader narrative of human history. The discovery of these truths could not only shed light on the past, but could also offer us a new path forward, a way of understanding the world that goes beyond the limitations of modern science and archaeology. If giants were truly a part of the ancient world, then their story may be a key to unlocking a deeper connection with the Earth and the cosmos itself. Could their disappearance have been part of a larger cosmic cycle, one that is yet to be fully understood? As we continue to search for answers, we are reminded of the words of ancient prophets and mystics who spoke of a time when hidden knowledge would be revealed, when the lost truths of the earth would emerge from the shadows. Whether or not the giants were the bearers of this knowledge, their story beckons us to look beyond the surface, to question the assumptions we have been taught, and to search for the truth that has long remained hidden from view. In doing so, we may not only uncover the mysteries of the past, but also unlock the potential for a future that we have yet to imagine. The enigma of the giants continues to unfold as we delve deeper into the unexplained mysteries that surround them. The more we look into the ancient records, the more we are drawn to a disturbing thought. What if the giants, who were once seen as gods or titans, were not just the product of myth, but a forgotten reality, one that was intentionally obscured from history? If giants were indeed real, as the evidence from various parts of the world suggests, then their true role in human history may be far more profound than we could have imagined. Could it be that their existence was deliberately erased? Or is there something much more sinister at play? Were we really missing when we ignore the possibility of these giants having walked the earth? One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the existence of giants lies in the many ancient texts and artifacts that mention them. The Bible itself is filled with references to giants, most famously in the book of Genesis, where the Nephilim are described as the offspring of angels and humans, the mighty men of old, men of renown. These beings were often depicted as giants, not just in size, but in power and intellect. Their legacy, though somewhat shrouded in mystery, left an indelible mark on the stories that followed, influencing cultures and civilizations in ways that still resonate today. In addition to the biblical references, there are countless other ancient writings that speak of similar beings. The Greeks told stories of the Titans, the primordial giants who ruled before the gods of Mount Olympus. The Norse myths spoke of the Jotnar, the giants who were at odds with the gods of Asgard. In South America, the Inca and other native cultures spoke of giant gods who descended from the heavens to teach the people the arts of agriculture, architecture, and astronomy. These stories, passed down through generations, may not be as fantastical as they first seem. Could they be a record of a race of beings far superior to human beings, beings who were both revered and feared? Adding weight to this hypothesis is the discovery of giant skeletal remains that have been unearthed in various parts of the world. From the plains of North America to the deserts of the Middle East, reports of giant skeletons have emerged for centuries. In many cases, these remains are described as being far larger than those of any modern human. Some reports suggest skeletons that measure 12, 15, or even 20 feet in length, far exceeding the size of any known human being. Yet, despite the abundance of these reports, mainstream archaeology often dismisses these findings, attributing them to misinterpretation, exaggeration, or medical conditions such as gigantism. However, this explanation does not seem to hold up when we look at the sheer scale of the skeletal remains that have been found, some of which appear to be deliberately buried in ritualistic tombs, further suggesting a level of importance and reverence reserved for beings of extraordinary status. The dismissive attitude of mainstream archaeologists only raises more questions. If these remains were indeed those of human beings, why are they so much larger than anything we know to be human? And why has there been such a concerted effort to suppress these findings? Could it be that the giants were part of an ancient civilization that predated any known human society? Some researchers suggest that the giants may have been part of a forgotten race, one that existed during a time long before the rise of Sumer, Egypt, or any of the other early civilizations we recognize today. According to this theory, the giants may have been the original builders of many of the megalithic structures that continue to baffle modern scientists. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, and the monolithic structures of Machu Picchu are just a few examples of ancient sites that suggest a level of technological expertise far beyond what should have been possible with the tools and knowledge of the time. Could these giant beings have been the architects of such structures, using their immense size and strength to move and carve stones that would be impossible for any human civilization to handle? The idea that the giants were the creators of these monuments is not just speculation. It is rooted in the fact that these structures remain unexplained by conventional archaeology. Despite all our advances in technology, modern researchers still cannot replicate the precision and scale of these ancient wonders. The possibility that giants were involved in the construction of these ancient monuments leads us to another question. What was their purpose? If these beings were so advanced, so powerful, why did they disappear from the historical record? One theory is that their disappearance was not natural, but the result of a cataclysmic event that wiped them out. Could the giants have been part of a great and powerful civilization that was destroyed in a global catastrophe, perhaps a great flood or an environmental disaster that reshaped the earth? This theory ties in with various ancient myths that describe great floods or cataclysmic events, such as the biblical flood, the story of Atlantis, or the destruction of the ancient city of Lemuria. In many of these myths, the giants are depicted as being destroyed by these events, their civilization lost to the tides of time. Could the legends of the giants' destruction be rooted in truth? Could they have been part of a much older civilization that was wiped off the face of the earth, leaving only their legends and monuments behind? However, if the giants were indeed destroyed by such a catastrophe, why is there so little direct evidence of their civilization? The key to understanding this mystery may lie in the way their history has been intentionally obscured or erased. Many researchers believe that the giants may have been part of an advanced race whose knowledge, technology, and influence were too powerful for the societies that followed. As human civilization developed, the descendants of the giants may have been deliberately erased from the historical record by those who sought to establish a new order. The suppression of their existence could have been part of an effort to consolidate power and control over the emerging civilizations, ensuring that the legacy of the giants did not interfere with the rise of new empires. Could the mythologies and ancient texts that speak of these giants have been intentionally manipulated to present them as gods or monsters, removing any trace of their true nature? The fact that the evidence for giants continues to surface, despite efforts to suppress it, is one of the most compelling aspects of this mystery. Over the centuries, numerous reports of giant skeletons, footprints, and other artifacts have surfaced, only to be dismissed or ignored by mainstream scholars. Yet the frequency of these discoveries suggests that the giants were once a very real and very significant part of human history. The fact that their story has been deliberately buried raises further questions. Why would the giants' existence be suppressed so thoroughly? What would be the consequence of acknowledging their role in history? And perhaps most intriguingly, why do these stories continue to resonate with us, even today? Is it possible that the giants, despite being lost to history, continue to haunt our collective consciousness? There is also the matter of the spiritual significance of the giants. Across cultures, the giants were not merely physical beings. They were often imbued with spiritual power. The gods of various mythologies, from the Greek Titans to the Hindu Asuras, were believed to have control over nature, the heavens, and even fate itself. Their influence was felt not only in the physical world, but in the spiritual and cosmic realms. If giants were indeed real, then their presence on Earth could have had profound spiritual and metaphysical implications. What if their knowledge and power extended beyond the material realm? Could the giants have been the original keepers of knowledge about the universe, the stars, and the unseen forces that govern the world? The possibility that these beings held secrets about the nature of reality itself adds another layer of intrigue to the mystery surrounding them. If their knowledge was lost, what secrets could have been passed down through the ages, hidden in plain sight? It is within this context that we must consider the possibility that the giants were not just a part of ancient history, but a vital link to the knowledge and wisdom of the past that we are only beginning to uncover. From their physical remains to the stories they left behind, the giants offer us a glimpse into a world that has long been hidden from view. The mystery of the giants is not just about their physical size or their role in ancient civilizations. It is about understanding who we are and where we come from. The story of the giants forces us to reconsider the narrative of human history and the forces that have shaped our world. As we continue to explore the evidence, we are left with a tantalizing question. What if the giants were not just a part of the past, but a key to unlocking a future that we have yet to fully understand? As the mystery of the giants deepens, the implications stretch far beyond ancient history or forgotten mythologies. The evidence of their existence, scattered across archaeological sites, ancient texts, and oral traditions, suggests a story that goes against the grain of what we've been taught about the origins of humanity. The giants, if they were real, were not just isolated figures. They appear to have had a profound impact on the development of human civilization. Their presence, both physical and cultural, might be hidden in plain sight, embedded in the very fabric of our myths, religious texts, and ancient structures. But why has the historical record been so obscured? And why are we so resistant to accepting the possibility that giants once roamed the earth? Could it be that acknowledging their existence would force us to question everything we thought we knew about human history? One of the most striking aspects of the giant narrative is its pervasive presence across cultures, regardless of geography or time period. From the giants of ancient Greece to the Jotnar of Norse mythology, from the Nephilim in the Bible to the colossal beings in South American lore, the giants seem to appear everywhere. The consistency of their portrayal as beings of immense power, size, and wisdom leads one to wonder, how could such similar tales emerge from cultures that had no contact with each other? What is it about the giants that resonates across cultures, even in the most disparate parts of the world? Could these stories have originated from a shared historical reality? Or are they simply the product of a universal human desire to explain the inexplicable? The ancient texts and cultural traditions across the world may not simply be recounting fables. They may be the remnants of a forgotten truth, a truth that the giants were once real and shaped the course of human history in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. If giants were real, their influence on human civilization would have been nothing short of monumental. Ancient structures, some of the most enduring mysteries of the world, might have been built with their knowledge or through their labor. The megalithic monuments scattered across the globe, like the Great Pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge, and the colossal stone blocks of Machu Picchu, defy conventional explanations. Modern historians and archaeologists are still unsure how such structures were built with the limited tools and resources available to ancient peoples. Yet, the scale of these monuments suggests a workforce that could manipulate enormous stones and construct intricate designs with precision, something no known civilization could have achieved without extraordinary assistance. Could these giants have been the original builders of these ancient wonders, using their immense strength and intellect to craft these lasting symbols of power and wisdom? Could the very tools and techniques used in these constructions be the legacy of a forgotten race of giants, whose civilization predates our own? The evidence that supports this theory is not limited to just physical monuments or ruins. The very way that many ancient cultures understood the cosmos, the stars, and the architecture of the heavens suggests a level of knowledge that would have been beyond the capabilities of early humans. The alignment of the pyramids with the stars, the precision of the stonework at Machu Picchu, and the intricate geometries found in the ruins of ancient cities all speak to a sophisticated understanding of the world and the universe. Could this knowledge have been passed down by beings far more advanced than the civilizations that followed? If giants were indeed real, could they have been the original holders of this knowledge, teaching humanity about the stars, geometry, and the forces of nature? And if so, why is this knowledge so carefully hidden from view today? The suppression of the giant narrative also plays a crucial role in understanding why these beings have remained a mystery for so long. The historical record, as we know it, is often written by those in power, and there are many who stand to gain from controlling the narrative of human history. If giants were real and their existence could be proven, it would challenge everything we've been taught about the rise of human civilization. It would force us to reconsider the timeline of history, to ask whether advanced beings, whether giants or other entities, helped shape the world we live in. This kind of revelation could unsettle the established order, as it would undermine the belief that human progress was solely a result of our own ingenuity. It could expose the fact that some knowledge, some wisdom, has been deliberately withheld, perhaps to maintain a certain power structure or worldview. One of the most troubling aspects of this suppression is the way in which it has impacted our understanding of the world. If the giants were truly part of our ancient past, then the knowledge they left behind could offer valuable insights into our own development. From the alignment of ancient monuments to the architectural and engineering feats that seem impossible for the time, we might be missing key pieces of a larger puzzle. If the giants were involved in the construction of these monuments, it could mean that our understanding of ancient history, technology, and even the nature of reality itself is fundamentally flawed. Could the suppression of this knowledge have been part of a deliberate effort to keep humanity from accessing these ancient secrets? The existence of giants also raises intriguing questions about the human relationship to the Earth itself. If these beings were indeed part of the natural world, then what was their connection to the planet's ecosystems, its animals, and its resources? Many ancient myths describe giants as not only beings of great size and strength, but also as guardians of nature and the Earth's sacred elements. In some stories, they're said to have created the mountains, rivers, and forests, shaping the Earth into the world we know today. If this is true, could the giants have had a deeper connection to the planet's natural rhythms and energies, one that has been lost to us over time? Could their knowledge of the Earth's forces have allowed them to harness energies that we are only beginning to understand? And if so, what does that mean for our own understanding of the natural world and our place within it? There is also the question of why the giants have such a strong presence in our collective imagination. The stories of giants, from the Bible to the legends of ancient cultures, continue to resonate with us today. Why do we remain fascinated by these larger-than-life beings who embody strength, wisdom, and power? Perhaps it is because the giants represent a kind of ideal, a connection to a past where humanity lived in harmony with nature and the divine. The giants were not just powerful beings. They were also protectors, teachers, and creators. in many ways. They represented an idealized version of humanity's potential, beings who had mastered both the physical and spiritual realms. Their stories speak to our deepest desires for wisdom, strength, and purpose. Could it be that, in some way, the giants symbolize something that we have lost, a connection to a deeper, more meaningful existence, one that transcends the limitations of modern life? As we continue to explore the evidence surrounding the giants, we are forced to confront some uncomfortable truths. If giants were real, if they once walked the earth, then what does that say about our understanding of the past? What does it say about the power structures that have shaped human history? And what does it mean for our future if the legacy of these beings is still hidden from us? The answers to these questions may lie in the very heart of the mystery itself. Perhaps the giants are not simply an ancient relic of the past, but a key to understanding the true nature of our existence. Perhaps the knowledge they left behind, buried in the ruins of ancient civilizations, holds the answers to questions we have only begun to ask. The mystery of the giants is not just a historical puzzle. It is a challenge to rethink everything we have been taught about human history, our relationship to the earth, and our place in the cosmos. In the end, the story of the giants is not just about their physical presence or the monuments they may have built. It is about the deeper truth they represent, that the history of humanity may be far more complex, far more mysterious than we could have ever imagined. The giants may not just be part of a forgotten past. They may hold the key to a future that we are only beginning to comprehend. What would it mean for us, as a species, if we were to rediscover this lost chapter of our history? Would it change the way we view the world, ourselves, and our place in the grand scheme of things? The mystery of the giants may be one of the most profound questions of our time, and the answers we seek could alter the course of human history forever. The search for the giants and their place in history has captivated the minds of researchers, explorers, and curious individuals for centuries. It's not merely the idea of colossal beings that stirs our imagination, but the larger implications that come with acknowledging their existence. If these giants truly existed, their presence would have altered the very fabric of human civilization. The suppression of their story would not only reveal hidden chapters of history, but also force us to reconsider the origins of knowledge, architecture, culture, and even religion. Could these giants have played an integral role in shaping the foundations of human life as we know it? Or were they the remnants of an ancient and powerful civilization that predates everything we understand about human evolution? The more we dig into the ancient past, the more we are confronted with mysteries that challenge the official narrative, pushing us to reconsider what we think we know. One of the most perplexing aspects of the giant enigma is the way in which these beings are described in ancient texts. From the Bible to ancient Sumerian tablets, from Norse mythology to the legends of indigenous cultures across the world, giants have appeared as towering figures, beings of immense power and wisdom, often regarded as gods or demigods. In many cultures, giants are believed to have been the progenitors of humanity, beings who descended from the heavens or were born from the earth itself. These accounts raise questions about the true nature of the giants and their relationship to early human societies. Were they extraterrestrial beings, divine entities, or simply an advanced race of humans whose existence was overshadowed by later civilizations? The fact that so many cultures have stories about giants suggests that their presence was not just a figment of imagination, but a deeply rooted memory passed down through generations. The consistency of these giant legends across different cultures hints at a shared truth that has been obscured by time. Could it be that these giants were a physical reality, not merely mythological creatures? If they were real, then their impact on the ancient world would have been far-reaching, influencing everything from construction techniques to religious practices and even the social and political structures of early societies. The physical evidence of their existence, in the form of giant skeletal remains found in burial mounds, caves, and ancient tombs, is compelling. These remains, sometimes described as being over 10 feet tall, suggest that these beings were not mere legends, but had a tangible presence in the distant past. Yet, despite the wealth of reports and testimonies from researchers, archaeologists, and even ordinary citizens, mainstream academia has largely dismissed these discoveries. What is it about these findings that make them so uncomfortable for conventional science? Why is there such a concerted effort to suppress or discredit evidence that could fundamentally alter our understanding of human history? The suppression of giant discoveries is a central aspect of this mystery. Time and again, we hear stories of giant skeletons unearthed by excavations, only for them to be mysteriously lost, destroyed, or locked away from public view. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, several accounts emerged of giant remains being discovered across North America, particularly in burial mounds in the Midwest. These skeletons, often described as being over 12 feet tall, were said to have features that set them apart from ordinary humans, such as large skulls or elongated bones. Yet, when researchers attempted to study them, they encountered resistance, with local governments or private institutions often stepping in to halt the investigations. Some of these skeletons were reportedly taken by museums, but there are no records of their existence or location today. The mystery surrounding these discoveries raises unsettling questions. What happened to these remains, and why were they removed from public scrutiny? Could it be that these findings were suppressed to prevent the world from learning the truth about the giants? The idea of a global conspiracy to suppress the truth about giants might seem far-fetched to some, but the evidence of cover-ups is hard to ignore. It's not just the disappearance of physical remains that suggests something more sinister at play. It's also the way in which these findings are often dismissed outright. Skeptics argue that the giant skeletons are either misidentifications of large individuals suffering from gigantism or simply hoaxes. But the sheer scale of the remains found in various locations across the globe makes such explanations highly unlikely. The idea that these skeletons, often described as being several feet taller than any human on record, could be the result of a genetic disorder or mere exaggeration doesn't hold up when faced with the consistency of the reports. The fact that giants are a recurring theme in so many ancient cultures also suggests that these beings were far more than a mere historical anomaly. They were part of a lost chapter of human history, one that has been deliberately erased or hidden. The possibility of a cover-up raises more intriguing questions. Why would the existence of giants be so threatening to the establishment? The giants were not just beings of physical power. They were often depicted as possessing great wisdom and knowledge. In many ancient cultures, giants were said to have been the teachers of mankind, imparting crucial knowledge about agriculture, astronomy, and construction. Could the giants have been the original architects of human civilization, guiding early societies with their advanced knowledge? If giants were involved in the building of the megalithic structures that still stand today, such as the pyramids, Stonehenge, or the ruins of Machu Picchu, then their influence on the development of human technology and culture would have been immeasurable. The idea that these giants were the key figures in the rise of ancient civilizations would be a direct challenge to the mainstream narrative, which holds that human progress was solely the result of gradual evolution and ingenuity. Could the suppression of the giants be an attempt to keep us from acknowledging a more advanced and perhaps more troubling history? The giants also play a central role in understanding the role of mythology in human culture. Myths about these larger-than-life beings are not just stories of ancient times. They serve as archetypes that help shape our worldview. In Greek mythology, the Titans were the primordial gods who preceded the Olympian gods, and their struggle for dominance over the earth was a central theme of the ancient Greek worldview. Similarly, in Norse mythology, the Jotnar, or giants, were seen as primordial beings who were often in conflict with the gods of Asgard. The presence of giants in these myths suggests that they represented a fundamental force in the human imagination, something both awe-inspiring and terrifying, embodying the raw power of nature itself. But could these myths be more than just stories? Could they be the remnants of a time when giants truly roamed the earth and their actions and struggles were transposed into the myths and legends of later generations. The relationship between the giants and the gods is particularly interesting because it suggests that the giants were not just physical beings, but also beings of divine power. In many ancient cultures, gods were often portrayed as larger-than-life figures who had the ability to shape the world. The Greek gods, the Egyptian gods, the gods of Hinduism, all were depicted as possessing immense power, often manifesting in their ability to control nature, wielding thunder or lightning, and having dominion over the heavens. If the giants were indeed the original gods or the predecessors to the gods of these ancient cultures, then it would mean that these divine beings were not merely figments of human imagination, but were based on real entities whose power and influence were deeply intertwined with the physical world. As we continue to investigate the giants and their place in history, we find ourselves confronted with more questions than answers. Could the giants have been part of a lost civilization that predates even the earliest known societies? What role did they play in the creation of ancient monuments? And how did they impart their knowledge to the civilizations that followed? The answers to these questions may be buried in the earth, hidden in plain sight, or deliberately concealed from view. But what is clear is that the story of the giants is not just about ancient beings. It is about our understanding of human history itself. The giants represent a challenge to the established narrative, forcing us to ask uncomfortable questions about the origins of human civilization and the forces that have shaped our past. As we continue to explore this mystery, we may find that the giants are not just a relic of the past, but a key to unlocking a deeper understanding of our place in the world. As we venture even deeper into the mystery of the giants, it becomes increasingly apparent that their existence challenges the very foundation of everything we've been taught about the world. If giants truly existed, beings who were not only physically superior, but who may have also held advanced knowledge about the earth and the cosmos, then what does that mean for the narrative of human history? The evidence of their presence is not confined to a single region or culture. It is scattered across the globe, found in ancient texts, monuments, and even in the very earth itself. The more we explore, the more it becomes clear that the story of giants is not just about the past, but may hold significant implications for our future as well. The giants, if they existed, may not have been a singular race, but could have been part of a broader, ancient civilization, one that spanned vast stretches of land and time, leaving behind traces that are only now beginning to be uncovered. For centuries, we have accepted the notion that human civilization evolved gradually, from primitive hunter-gatherers to advanced societies. This evolution was believed to be a slow, linear process. But what if this progression wasn't so straightforward? What if the giants, with their extraordinary abilities, played a significant role in shaping the course of human development, teaching early humans advanced concepts such as agriculture, astronomy, and architecture? Could it be that the giants were not just myths, but active participants in the rise of ancient cultures, providing the knowledge that enabled early civilizations to thrive? If so, how would this change our understanding of ancient human achievement?